Welcome to the Jockey Club, a podcast looking at the movie Let It Ride, one scene at a time. My name is Dan Delgado, and we're at historic Hialeah Park where one man is having the best day of his life.
I'm having a good day.
So come on in and hang out while we talk about this day and the greatest movie of all time, Let It Ride. Don't worry about that guy at the door. I've got you covered. You can even
take my seat to the Jockey Club.
Welcome back to the Jockey Club. My name is Dan Delgado. We are up to episode 17, which means, of course, we are doing the 17th scene of Let It Ride. And really, this is the 17th scene, according to me. This is the scene right where Trotter returns to the Jockey Club and receives a phone call from his wife, Pam. With me to discuss this scene is Eric Steuer. Eric is not just a man who loves Teri Garr, and don't we all, but he's also the host of a new podcast from MovieMaker Magazine called Actual Facts, which takes a look at documentary films. Actual Facts is available right now in the MovieMaker Interviews feed, though I do believe that it will have its own feed soon enough. Either way, there will be a link to it in the show description. And a quick reminder that we do have merch. Yes, indeed. If you cannot live without a Jockey Club shirt or mug, we do have you covered. Again, there will be a link to it in the show description for you to get one or 16, however many you need. And if you're playing along at home, this is from minute 44:08 to minute 48:09. Okay, now let's head on up to my usual table at the Jockey Club to discuss the 17th scene of Let It Ride. Eric, since this is your first time doing this program with me, doing this ridiculous show that I'm doing, this is the 17th scene that we're doing. And so the first question I like to ask people, do you remember the first time that you saw Let It Ride? Can you recall that experience?
Yes, I rented it from Blockbuster probably in 1990, somewhere in there. I was in high school, and just one of those weekends where you rent a bunch of movies, and at one point, Blockbuster only had like a one-night rental situation. I think for some more popular releases, that was always the case. But then at one point, they had like the 4 to 5 day rental situation. So you could just get a bunch of movies and didn't have much going on in your life, like me, maybe in 9th or 10th grade. Then you might just watch movies at home for the weekend. And that's definitely the first time I saw it. I remember seeing the case quite a bit in my local Blockbuster. And I don't know, looks fun. So I got it. That was the first time I saw it. And I've seen it probably 3 times, but not since around that time until this week. So I remember liking it though, and it definitely views different now, but I still like it a lot.
Okay, so you liked it in 19, like that's how we would describe it. You liked it. It's not maybe a favorite, but this was a good time.
Absolutely.
All right, and so now watching it now with older 2022 eyes, how are we feeling about it?
I liked it still. There's 3 things that I thought. One is that obviously if this was made now, I think most of the women characters would be maybe treated a little differently. But the other thing I would say is that, well, for whatever reason, about halfway through it occurred to me that one of my favorite movies the last few years, Uncut Gems, sort of is like the other side of that coin of the story. Like, what if someone actually had a good day gambling instead of the worst day ever?
Well, I mean, not to defend Sandler's actions, he does, spoiler alert for Uncut Gems, he does win. It doesn't go well for him, but all of the insanity that he does, you know what, that may be the more realistic version. If you actually do all of the things to try to manifest this, Sandler's fate is perhaps more likely than what Richard Dreyfuss's fate is in Let It Ride.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I say the third thing that it made me think of is that I would never have put this together then, and maybe I have listened to several episodes of the Jockey Club. In fact, I am a Jockey Club Plus subscriber, premier member.
Oh, wow. We just started to roll that out, so I'm so impressed that you've already signed up for it.
Yeah, it was important to me. Is that, and so I don't know if you discussed this with anyone else or anyone has hypothesized this, but it almost seems now, doing it, that first scene sets up the fact that this is maybe all not even real. Like it is actually a dream. Like it's clearly a fantasy movie. It is a
Unquestionably,
fantasy,
right?
but maybe it is also because of that fortune cookie scene and then the sort of the minor, the one flash of magic that you get at the diner scene. Made me wonder, is there a read on this where the whole thing's actually not even supposed to be real life? Like it is supposed to be the dream day that Jay Trotter has, and it didn't really happen.
Wow, so you're kind of telling me that it's possible that Let It Ride is much like that one season of Dallas, a show I never watched, but the one where, Patrick Duffy is in the shower and then you find out the entire season before has been a dream. Do you know what I'm talking about, or am I just wasting my time?
No, of course I know what you're talking
about.
We're cut from the same cloth.
Okay, that's what I thought, yeah. So there's an entire season of that series is a dream in order to bring the dead character back. You're saying much like that, all of Let It Ride could possibly be a dream.
It could possibly. Another instance of that, of course, is the entire series of Newhart. No spoiler alert.
That's true. Oh my God.
If you're in the middle of a Newhart binge watch, then I'm sorry to spoil it for you.
That's true. All like 9 seasons of Newhart. That is
Larry, Daryl, and Daryl never existed.
That is much more dedication to the dream idea, actually, when you think about it. Okay, I have never thought this before. No one has hypothesized it, but I do love getting new ideas like that. I don't know. That's because definitely unusual, strange things are happening. He starts to notice them, right? As they kind of manifest, you get the weird, chimes that pop in when something strange is going on. So I could kind of see where you're going with that. That's not completely off the map for me.
I'm glad that you at least entertain the idea. So you don't think like he gets to do all these things where he's a winner and he gets to be lauded by everyone at the track and at his bar. Everyone is fawning over him. Basically, everything that does not happen to him typically happens to him here. He even gets to display some morality when he turns down Jennifer Tilly. He gets to be redeemed in the eyes of his lovely wife. He gets private security. Gets to go to the Jockey Club, even win the respect of the great Robbie Coltrane, who thought he was a complete schlub just minutes before.
It really is a perfect day for this guy. Like for Jay Trotter, this really is a perfect day. It could not have gone any better.
Yes.
So.
And the last thing I'll say, and I think I read the Nathan Rabin piece about this on what's his collection of these essays about, I think it's My Year of Flops or something like that. Have you read that one?
I have read that one.
Okay. Yeah, he mentioned something that it occurred to me too as a possibility. Well, not a possibility in terms of the way the narrative plays out, but that this is the kind of movie that if it was tonally different, filmed a bit different music, and maybe made in the 70s, it could be like this, kind of this small character movie that wouldn't be played in the kind of bigger, high concept 80s way, but it would be more of a character movie. And that was interesting to me too, to imagine this story playing out. Maybe even with Richard Dreyfuss playing the character, but maybe 10 years earlier.
Oh, yeah. You could definitely see this story playing out a number of different ways. Yeah, like that's one way. I mean, and honestly, you just already brought up Uncut Gems. That's kind of another way, but, sort of somewhat in a similar fashion, I guess. All right, let's get to scene 17. And we kind of have 2 things that are going on in this scene. We have Trotter returning to the Jockey Club right after Lord Byron loses, and so for the first part of the scene, he's kind of schmoozing there, and then he's on the phone with his wife Pam, who we haven't seen all the way from that first scene of the movie. So when this scene starts, Eric, he comes in, and he's still watching the replay of Lord Byron on the monitors, and he's musing to himself how I didn't lose. This is getting weirder and weirder. Like he's now starting to really see that, okay, now I'm not just having a good day, but really something else may be going on here. Even when he sits down and talks to the ladies, and when he talks to Vicky and Mrs. Davis, and Mrs. Davis, I would have never known her name if I wasn't doing this podcast and looking stuff up, that Michelle Phillips' character has a name.
That's right, played by the great Michelle Phillips.
Right? Yeah, so Vicky tells him when he sits down that she won, and he responds with, I didn't lose.
Right. So another part of his good day. He did not lose, and he is a loser.
He is unquestionably a loser. But the fact that this is now sort of adding up, right? And I hadn't thought about this until I did this episode previously, was that Lord Byron loses to a horse called Splendid Reason. As why this is why the horse you wanted to bet on didn't win. It was for this splendid reason, this fate.
Too busy crashing through a door to place the bet. A splendid reason.
Yeah. So, what do you make of this? Him sort of, I guess, waking up more and more to whatever supernatural thing may be going on here.
Yeah, this may have been the scene, actually, this part of the scene where it clicked for me that was a possibility, that this was actually something that was a dream. Another possibility, of course, is he had prayed to God earlier. Maybe, that he was having his dreams answered finally after, again, being a loser and been on the losing side of so many aspects of life up until now, that finally it was occurring to him, this is what it's like. And this is it. And I got to let it ride.
Wow, that's really good. And also, this dream idea does make it much more plausible that 5'2", 5'4" Richard Dreyfuss could smash through a door the way he does. Right?
Jockey-sized Richard Dreyfuss.
Jockey-sized Richard Dreyfuss could just steamroll through that door. Okay, so he sits down and he's kind of like schmoozing and having a good time. You've got Vicky on one side tapping his leg with her foot, and
a classic 80s movie trope.
Oh my God, absolutely. You watch this and you think, when was the last time I saw this in a movie, right? And then on the other side, Mrs. Davis is doing the exact same thing, right? And I just love this little interaction with Bernie, Alan Garfield, who boasts. Here's a claim for you, Eric. Look, I'm so rich that when I lose 10K at the track, I just add half a set to the oversized birthday envelopes that I sell. And he says this as though he's some sort of financial genius and not sounding like a complete asshole.
Yeah, it's a pretty great line read, actually. Speaking of, as you know, I am in a hotel. I'm recording this. Guess how many bathrooms are in my hotel room?
Oh my goodness. All right.
I don't know. That's how many bathrooms it has.
6. It has 6. You can tell. I don't know.
Very, very, very wealthy man.
Okay, so Garfield tosses that dumb line out about the half cent on the envelopes, and Trotter says, "I'll take 6 dozen." Everyone laughs and you can tell that Bernie feels all right. They're all laughing at me, right?
Yeah.
And so now Trotter gets paged. Dr. J. Trotter gets paged, which can only boost his presence at the Jockey Club by being identified as Doctor, since no one knows who he is.
Yes, that part I loved. Also felt like an 80s movie trope, although it's, of course, not specific to the 80s or anything. Just like that call, like that if you're a doctor, that's like the height of being a superstar and fancy guy. It's actually a thing that I think is funny about the movie generally, is that he's playing a schlub. I mean, he plays it well, don't get me wrong, but he is wearing a suit. There's a few remarks throughout the film about him having worn the suit for a couple of days, but like you look around now and you go to a place, probably even the racetrack, but there's a lot of Crocs and shorts being worn. A guy wearing a suit, even a couple of days old, I don't have a hard time believing that he could be a doctor or that he belongs in the Jockey Club.
Yeah, this is true. You don't see anybody wearing a suit just like rolling around town like he is. So yeah, that's fair. I actually went to Hialeah Park not that long ago, a couple of weeks ago. Boy, it's a depressing place. Boy, you've never seen such a depressing place. Now, there's no horse racing going on there, right?
Oh, is that right? So what do they use it for now?
It's turned into just a standard casino. But
okay.
I believe the track is a landmark now, so they can't tear it down. So the track's
as seen in the movie Let It Ride,
yeah.
The plaque out front.
So the track itself is just sitting there. You can still see the flamingos in the middle of the track. They're still there, but like grass is kind of growing, and all the seats are just empty and cavernous. So if you go out to the track area, it's borderline creepy now.
Right.
Yeah.
I can absolutely imagine that. There are landmarks in Southern California where I grew up that we visit, and it feels similar, like ghosts.
Like ghosts. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so inside, it's just a bunch of slot machines and, people losing their money. So I guess really not much has changed if you think about it that way. So when he goes to get the phone call, right? I love how Bernie scoffs, "Some doctor." Like, I don't even know what that means.
Right. Just brushing him off, but like there's no there's actually no substance to his insult.
Right. I don't even know. I can't even. All right. So he gets to the phone. He's waiting for whoever has called him. He doesn't even know who it is. And we see Lufkin and Johnny Casino enter. A fantastic name, by the way, Johnny Casino.
I totally agree. I saw that in the credits. It's like, that is an excellent name, and I may change my DJ name to that.
Yeah, so that's oh my God, Richard Schramm and Richard Edson. The great Richard Edson both pop in and Trotter looks at them. We don't know these guys yet, but based on the music and the snarl that Trotter gives, we kind of get the all right. We don't like these guys, but Lufkin kind of comes in like, I don't know, like he's sort of floating through the Jockey Club, and he kind of doffs his hat to Vicky, and then he sits down and he orders caviar and champagne.
That's what rich people do, man.
I think this is how you Jockey Club properly, right?
That's right.
You come down, you have caviar and champagne, which
actually sounds very good to me. I didn't take note of it in the moment, but now that you say it, I'm like, that would be really fun.
Are you a caviar guy? Can you do that?
I like caviar. Yeah, I like it on a nice cracker or a toasted piece of bread. It's really nice.
I try. My wife is from the Soviet Union, and so caviar is a thing for her. And every so often it shows up, and then it's a thing for me, and it's like, no, just doesn't.
I certainly would never think it was strange that someone who was not into it. Eat sparingly, but yeah, I like a salty snack, and I like special food.
All right, so here we get Teri Garr back in the movie. We haven't seen her since like minute 4 of the film, right?
Yeah. Well, when you and I were emailing about this, and you chose this scene, I felt like it was my own lucky day, to be honest with you, because I love Teri Garr. I really do. It's like. And I'm so glad that I got to talk to you about a scene that she's so prominently in. Because as you say, she's in some important scenes, but she's not in a good chunk of the first half of the movie.
Oh yeah, she's very absent from this movie. All right, so do you have a go-to Teri Garr film other than Young Frankenstein?
Well, I love Young Frankenstein, of course.
Well,
but yeah, I'd say that the trio of movies that I grew up on watching. Very frequently are God, Mr. Mom, and Tootsie. And she is just an excellent performance in all of them. And she's one of my favorite. I think because those movies were such staples of my early childhood, had them on VHS and just they were on all the time. I thought that she was maybe on all the time. I thought that she was like one of the most famous people in the world. Like she is a very well-known actor, of course, and is in tons and tons of stuff. But I thought that she was like the most famous actor that was in movies because she was so great and so prominent and she plays exasperated so amazingly well. Does that here too?
Yes.
Of course, Close Encounters too. Actually, now that I think about it, this was the great reunion, right?
Yeah, this is the big the Close Encounters reunion. That is correct. Yeah. All right. So, and here's what I love. He gets on the phone, and he starts talking to her, and he says that once he heard the doctor, he was sure it was her. And what I love about this is how does Jay Trotter, who the night before had this dinner with his wife where he got back together with her and promised her that right after driving a cab all night, he was going to go home to her and restart their marriage. And he's now obviously at the track where she's calling him at the track. And he gets on the phone and he says, I knew it was you. What's up, babe? Like there's no problem with this.
Yeah, it's bold. I guess he's feeling himself because it's his big day, He's got no qualms to get on that phone and just disregard all the things, all the promises that he's broken that he made.
I love that you bring up the fact that she plays exasperated very well because that is so perfect for what's going on in this conversation, right? So at first, he's actually clueless for a little while, right? She's asking him questions like, what time is it? And he's, it's 1:45, doll. And then she says it back to him. 1:45, doll, right? It's so good. You could just feel her simmering about his utter cluelessness, right?
Absolutely. She's doing so much with the dialogue here because there's some actually pretty clumsy lines that she plays them exactly what you just described. Like he says something about honey, darling. And I'm imagining that she didn't ad-lib that. That was probably, I know that you've talked to folks who have, maybe you have yourself, you got to look at the screenplay. I don't know if that phrase appears in there. There's actually one more we could talk about it in a moment. There's a few of these lines where she's very good at delivering in a way that feels believable, even though the words themselves are a little bit over the top. Honey, darling.
Yes. I have looked at this screenplay, and I did read this scene. This part where they're on the phone is longer than what it is in the movie. There's a lot more of the back and forth between them, but it's basically the same thing, right? Where she's upset with him. I don't see in here where she takes the phone receiver and pounds it against the bed. That was
that whole element, slamming the phone on the bed. I love that, and of course, we'll probably take a minute to get to this part. But another '80s trope is when someone hangs up, you hear the dial tone, and then you're fiddling with it. Jay.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is absolutely not something. I don't know. Like when you hang up the phone, it didn't just automatically go to a dial tone that fast, right?
That's true too. That's true too.
Yeah, so he starts immediately. She gets enraged at him, starts yelling, and yeah, and the look on his face. Oh no! Like, oh, I'm busted. Again, I'm still amazed at how long it took him to realize that that's what was going to happen on this call. His attitude going into the call was so easy breezy when it should have been like going to the principal's office, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, he's just feeling himself. He's at the Jockey Club. He's winning. Nothing can go wrong. He's got beautiful women fawning over him, and nothing can go wrong. So yeah, that is a hilarious line though. So she calls it. What time is it? And he's like, kind of casually looks up at the clock. It's 1:45. Like as if that's not a rhetorical question.
Right. Exactly.
What time it is.
Yes. Right. Like he's actually answering a question, and she starts yelling at him, and then the call back to the phrase, "I'm going to call my attorney, and I'm going to tell him to go for your balls." Right.
In the 80s, everyone had an attorney, man. Like, I don't know anyone who has an attorney.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, right? I don't know, especially like these people, you get an impression at whatever station they are in life. There's no way that either of these two people have an attorney. You see her in the apartment that they live in. It looks like the tiny one bedroom in Miami. That's not somebody who has an attorney, right? Like on speed dial.
What do you think her job was? She's a cab driver.
Oh my God, that is an excellent question. What does Pam do for a living? Oh, okay.
I could see her.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you got?
Selling cosmetics at like a department store.
Oh, I like this. I was gonna say secretary, but that's way too simplistic. But you know what? Yeah, she works the Clinique counter at the Burdines.
There you go.
That's it. I like this. She sells cosmetics. That's perfect for her. I know, and you feel bad. She's there. The more I watch this movie, the more I feel bad for her when I watch this, right? She's there
Absolutely.
in her little pink robe, waiting to have this, romantic afternoon with her husband who's getting back. And he starts to convince her, listen, I'm having a good day. I'm up 2,500. She does not believe him. And then he tells her, I want you to get all gussied up. Love that phrase. Get all gussied up.
Gussied up.
Well, a phrase I would never use.
I would imagine using that to a woman. I don't think it'd go over very well.
Yeah, I feel like that's a phrase that's probably past its prime these days. Gussied up. I want you to get all gussied up and come on down here, right? And then he hangs up before she can yell at him more. And he just bops back off, right? He's kind of like humming to himself as he's going back to the table to where, the ladies are and whatever. And, okay, so this last little bit here of the scene where she sits there completely exhausted with him. And she says, well, maybe one more time. But after that, no more, right?
So you speak out loud to yourself that way, don't you?
Oh, my God. Well, all right. All right, between you, me, and the Brooklyn Bridge, I talk to myself constantly, and it's very strange, I'll tell you that. But yeah, you're right.
Well, you come from a great tradition of Pam, Dan.
Yes, exactly. That's right. So, but this moment, as I see it, which it's it's comedy. It's funny that she's going to give in to him one more time, but you look at it, especially if you're watching this movie in 2022, you feel for Pam there. It's like, oh, this feels a little like what an abuse victim would do.
Absolutely. This is another reason I think that maybe there's an argument to be made that this is like his fantasy, like this is his dream. Because would she really do that? Pam has got a lot going for her. She's funny, beautiful, and cool. And I feel like even the fact that she would then, that he would imagine her sitting there and saying that out loud, that's another element of my argument for why this could be his dream.
Okay, I could totally go with this. This is, Let It Ride is actually the inception of gambling movies, is what you're trying to tell me here. That's
what I should have pitched from the start. Yes, exactly. A couple of things I want to say about her performance here. So there's a scene very similar in Tootsie where she's exasperated with Michael and he's late, and she has the same kind of anger, but wanting to stick around. And it reminded me of that. And I love her. If there's not a Garr cast out there, I may start one, because I will just review the filmography of Teri Garr, starting with she's in Head by the Monkees. That's the first one.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Would you do the Star Trek episode?
Star Trek episode. I think she's in an Andy Griffith episode. She's put in work. She's put in a lot of work over the years.
Andy Griffith, that's good. That's good. Yeah, the Garr cast. Well, look, if you need somebody for the Garr cast, especially if you get to the Let It Ride episode, I'm there for you. All right.
Excellent. Perfect. I want to give Teri Garr props for one more line reading, which is in that same conversation, of course. She says, "Oh, are you having a good day? Well, good day this, baby." That's the best. It's so good.
That is good. Yeah, you don't get lines like that. You don't get lines read like that,
No,
yeah.
No. I just love her.
Yeah, if you just look at that on the paper, that you would look at it and go, that's not a good line.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. There's a certain specific way that she brings herself to these parts that I just love, and I loved them from an early age. So I was so happy that we got to talk about this scene.
Yeah, I am definitely glad that we got to elevate Teri Garr a bit, because I always feel like when you talk about this movie, you talk about Dreyfuss, you talk about Jennifer Tilly, you talk about a number of things, and I feel like she's really overshadowed. I know she's probably in the movie for about 9 minutes total would be my guess, right? And I do feel as though she's really overshadowed. And yeah, I'm glad we got to do it. I got to do one with somebody who was a big fan. And
that's right. Oh, and on that note, I think of another line that I have to say, and I'm sorry to keep going back to lines, but
do it.
This is where another example where she's doing a lot of work with dialogue that is it's not the best. She says, "Liar, liar, pants on fire."
Yes,
in the middle of a serious argument. So, but you believe it because it's Garr.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Jockey Club. This episode was hosted and produced by me, Dan Delgado. Thank you to my guest, Eric Steuer. Look for Eric's podcast, Actual Facts, wherever you got this podcast from. But to make it easy on you, there will be a link to it in the show description. You can also find a link to get yourself some Jockey Club merch there as well, and I'm even putting a link to the Nathan Rabin piece on Let It Ride that Eric mentioned in there as well. Our theme music is from Epidemic Sound. Our cover art is by Sean Labrie. If you enjoyed this episode, and I certainly hope that you did, then maybe now is the time to help the show out by buying me a coffee. Yes, that's a thing. There's a link to it in the show description. It's been there for many episodes. Feel free to click it and find out how you can help the show out by giving just a little donation. Now, if you are saving up all of your pennies because you got a hot tip on this week's race, I understand. So you can still support the show by leaving a free 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you may be listening to this. You can also contact me if you want through email. It's dan@moviemaker.com. I am constantly on Twitter at _Dan_Delgado. Or even better, you can find me on the Repod app, which is indeed a fantastic way not only to listen to podcasts, but to interact with podcast hosts like myself. Find it in your app store. Come on by and say hello. This has been Dan Delgado for the Jockey Club. And remember, sometimes you could be walking around lucky and not even know it.